let's get started, Joyce, and I hope again Valli is going to join us in just a moment. So very interesting topic. I think that is on everybody's mind and has been talked, a lot, but there's just so much I think, you would be able to also share with you from your personal experience. We all know that women are underrepresented in engineering and especially engineering leadership. And hi, Valli, you made it.
Yes, I did.
Great. We're just starting with our first question. Again, I'll repeat myself. We know that women are underrepresented in engineering and especially engineering leadership. Women make up just 29% of the STEM workforce. And among STEM industry CEOs, only 3% are women. So can you talk about why is this and how we can address it?
So one thing I want to start with is that women and men are not equal. I think that women are much stronger. So I don't feel, and I think that, and it's a huge generalization, but women always want to execute and do the work and be in the background, and they don't seem to want to stand out in front. And so, and I think that's one of the reasons why you see a lot of male CEOs. It's an ego thing. Women don't tend to have that. And I always like to give this example, and I told you guys about this the other day. I have a kindergarten teacher that had all 4 of my daughters. And one of the little experiments she does at the beginning of each class is she puts all the boys in a group and she gives them a bunch of blocks and she tells them to build something. And they build a tower, the tallest tower they can build. And she does the same thing to the girls group. And the girls build a huge community. They have a shopping area, they have houses, they have a playground, and they build an entire community. And I think in general, that's the way women's minds work. We want to build a community. We want to build an inclusive environment and include everyone. And the men want to build the tallest tower they can build, and they don't care about anything else. And so what does it take to be a CEO sometimes? Sometimes you have to want to build the biggest tower, and the people aren't recognized who want to build the community. And so, that could be one reason. That's just, what I've observed. Girls don't seem to be as confident. And so when you see a job description for a CEO, a lot of women would look at that and say, well, I didn't do this, this, and this, so I'm not qualified. Whereas guys who maybe have done the same amount of that the girl has done will apply anyway, because they feel like, yes, I could do that. So I think, there's a lot of reasons why girls aren't CEOs. I don't think that, I know even for me, I don't like to be, I don't like to stand out and have to stand behind the podium. And so, Valli, how do you feel about that?
I would echo a lot of the things that you're saying, right? I just think that the scaffolding for women, the support system is sort of, I don't want to say missing, because now pieces are getting in there, but it's definitely, there are big gaps. There are gaps in terms of how we mentor girls in schools. So we all have trouble when we start out doing anything different. So whether it's sports or whether it's math, science, it doesn't matter. But we're always encouraged in most of the areas to pursue, and you could get tutored, and we'll provide the support. But somehow when it comes to girls and math and science, the message gets a bit convoluted. Oh, well, if you can't do it, well, you could always move on to other things and do other things. I have a problem with that, meaning we seem to provide support very selectively. So certain students get additional support in certain subjects, and others are overlooked and are diverted to other areas. Same thing women who go on into college and then graduate out, come into the workforce, start working for a bit, and then take some time out, whether it is to raise family, to take care of loved ones, whatever. When they want to come back into the workforce, again, the bar is really high. And obviously technology moves faster. And so, taking a few years off, you might be a little less prepared. But again, if we provide that support, if we're ready to bring in these individuals because they have a lot of potential in terms of expanding our diversity and the value that they add, we need to offer that support. We need to make it easier for them to achieve their potential and to re-enter the workforce. And that it's a win-win situation. The company wins because we have diverse candidates. We have more candidates who bring in a richer experience, and the individuals themselves win because they gain their confidence back. And as Joyce mentioned, we have that problem that we all know about. We sort of are our own worst critics. We shoot ourselves down, and we sort of volunteer to get shot down as well. And we don't take enough credit for the things we do well, but do absorb a lot of the blame. Sorry. That was a bit longer than
that's so right, Valli.
Yeah.
And talking about women coming back to the workforce. So I went away from the workforce for a couple of years when I had my daughters. But now when I look back, when I'm looking at resumes, if I see someone who has that gap and I know that they're a mom, I would hire a mom in a second, because a mom can do everything. Multitask,
right?
know what to make for dinner, get the babysitter, get them to soccer. I mean, someone who can do that, and I just have the highest praise for moms. So to me, to hire a mom to come to work, I know they can do everything.
I think you both touched on a very important topic, right, of the support system, kind of that encouragement and really nurturing this, women and leadership. If I were to add something, I think families also, and it's kind of this like trickle effect, right? Once you have more women, it's kind of a snowball, and then women who are mothers are supporting their daughters. And probably Joyce, you can talk to it, right? Having 4 daughters, and I saw that I think your Twitter handle is Joyce for girls, right? Which is not coincidental, probably. I'm sure that you're going to share with us some stories of how you encouraged your girls to at least try themselves in STEM, right? It might have not stuck with them, but it would be interesting to hear.
Right. I do think it is a trickle effect. So, the more women that are there, the more women that are going to come because they have more role models, right? So I didn't really have a role model. My dad was an engineer, so he was my role model. And all through my career, I never had a woman role model, but I had awesome men who weren't, and I heard a woman speak earlier, they weren't just mentors, they were sponsors. And what the earlier speaker was talking about was, it wasn't just someone who mentored me and showed me the way and the path I should take, but advocated for me when I wasn't there, and pushed me into jobs that maybe I wasn't ready for, and made me step out of my comfort zone. And I think women need to find people like that. So I have had a terrible boss who was a woman, and I ended up just quitting, because when you're in an environment where someone is not supporting you, you need to just get out. So, and it was hard. I basically quit, walked away, and never looked back, and then started in the robotics field. So it's the best thing that ever happened. But I feel like there are so many challenges, and each of those challenges is really an opportunity to find your next advocate. There are so many wonderful men out there that have always supported me and pushed for me. And I'll give an example later of writing Navy ships and being the only girl. But as far as encouraging the girls, the biggest thing is exposure, early and often. So I would drag them to the science museum. Sometimes they didn't want to go. I would make them play with electric circuits. I would give them blocks instead of dolls. And so, we did everything to expose them to science. And I think one of the lessons I learned is that girls work better with friends and peers and pairs. So I forced all of my girls to take computer science in high school. And until I finally got to the last one, when I said, you're going to take computer science for your elective, she goes, well, I know, because you made all my sisters do it, but I found some friends who were going to do it with me. She's now majoring in computer science. So I think having a friend to do it with definitely makes a difference. So, and even in the workplace, this is something that I would recommend to employers. When you are going to hire a woman, try to hire two, or try to hire a group of peers that can someone to have lunch with, someone to go to the bathroom with, someone to watch out for you. Is my tag sticking out of my dress? Like, just little things that guys don't think about. So yeah. I think the whole working with another peer or another young girl or a friend makes a huge difference.
And again, that probably goes back to your earlier example about the teacher who was observing the community, right? Community is just so important to us, probably more than for men. So that kind of brings us to a question of how you and any leader, at tech companies can reinforce the diversity as a part of probably promotions and career ladders. We can talk a little bit later about the recruiting and kind of that initial stage, right, of attracting women and, encouraging women to become a part of this. But I think often overlook that later part, right? The growth, the promotion, really, women are not getting stuck at those initial kind of stages, or maybe, entry-level positions, and going further. What are maybe the tips you have for the leaders?
I can take this one.
Valli, please.
As Joyce had mentioned, right? I think having, being able to find people in pairs. So if you put and most of us have been in this position just because of the lack of number of women in engineering. We end up in teams where we're the only female engineer, and we're working with 7 other men. And as Joyce mentioned as well, there are very considerate men out there, and they've supported me enormously. And I think I share that in common with Joyce. They've been huge support, but still not having additional women definitely does hold us back. And it's just in our nature. We do better, we flourish, we are a bit more comfortable, less tongue-tied, more in the moment, I think, when we know that we are in company, like there's an additional person there. Just having an additional female, I think definitely does work. The other thing that I wanted to also mention is, if you're not at the table, I always believe we're on the menu, right? Like, if we don't have a seat at the table, we don't have anyone to speak for us a lot of the times, and so we end up being on the menu, like being eaten. And it's really important to get that representation, to feel comfortable and to get there. And so we do a great, not a great job, but we are trying to hire diverse candidates. We're trying to hire female engineers. But I think the most important part of that equation, that forms one half of the equation. The other half is actually growing individuals who we've already hired and enabling them to move up, accelerate in their career. And if they are, at that middle level, enabling them, figuring out what are the right tools in order to get them promoted to higher levels. So as you look, the numbers are anemic to begin with, and then get far worse as they get to leadership positions. So there's a huge gap. Even when we start out low, the numbers get even lower. And, why is that the case? I think we need to focus more on, there is a lot of focus on the hiring part of it. Now we get a lot of training. We're told about the biases, to be aware, how to mitigate. All of that is really good. I think the other half of the equation that we're not paying as much attention to is the attrition, is the high rate of drop-off of these women. And the reasons could be, as Joyce mentioned, there are very few of them, and so they don't feel as well supported. The tools that we have are not reaching the women, or are not in a format that that women can easily absorb and leverage and therefore grow. Or maybe we just haven't figured out how to fill the gaps or where exactly the gaps are. I know, but there is a huge drop off in that middle management. And then, of course, if there is no one in middle management, then you're not going to find CEOs with absolutely no experience. So.
Right. And I think it's almost worse to promote a woman who doesn't have the tools because you're setting her up for failure. And so then they can go back and say, well, that's why we don't put them in those positions. Right. So it's really it's like you said, it's a catch-22. So, you know, one of my strategies has always been to be one of the team players, to be. And so writing Navy ships, I would never ask for any special treatment because I was a girl. I was part of the team. I didn't want to be called a girl. I wanted to be a teammate. And so a lot of times when we would go on Navy ships, we would have to displace the officers so that 2 females could bunk in one room. And so when I would go, I would say, listen, I don't want to displace an officer. Put me in sick bay. I'll stay there and I'll only go back to my room at night. And unless there's an emergency, no one needs to use that room. Or one time we had an overflow bunk area and I just put a curtain up. And I said, you know, there's the shared shower, we would just turn the sign, men or women. And so the guys loved that and respected that I didn't ask for special privilege. I just said, treat me like a teammate. So, you know, that's one of the strategies I've always used.
Yeah, and Joyce, Valli, I would love you to expand on your kind of experience. And Margot gave an introduction of both of you of your current kind of positions and what are you up to right now. But please feel free to expand. And I know that Joyce and both Valli have wealth to share. You know, being in Navy and being in engineering her entire life. Valli, right? I don't know if you would agree with me, but I also think that women sometimes require a little bit more reassurance. So like if that boss who is telling you that you're doing great, you know, giving you frequent feedback, we might need to hear that maybe a little bit more often than men do, and pushing us, you know, and probably, you know, giving us an opportunity to take more. As Joyce, I think you were mentioning it earlier, like men don't really need an invitation, right? While we might be staying on the sidelines and kind of waiting for that to come to us versus proactively going after it. So probably leaders, could in that way do a little bit of a special treatment for women just because we're wired differently, right?
That's one thing I think that we need to just educate men on, right? I just think they don't know because they don't know what they don't know, right? So they don't know that we need to be pushed and asked, you know, to apply for another position, right? They don't know because they just assume that we're wired like them.
Maybe we should have more of a man in this audience than women. Trading secrets here for men leaders.
But, you know, one thing I would say to, you know, men leaders out there and just leaders in general is take a risk. And I say this all the time to investors who don't want to invest in the robotic space because it's a long ROI and it's a tough tech, right? I ask them to take a risk on one robotics company, put one robotics company into your portfolio. It's the only way we're going to advance the industry, right? And so I would say the same thing to leadership. Take a little risk on a woman. It's actually not a risk because give her a little and she will make good of it, you know? So that's I don't know how else to get men to understand.
I think also the other half of the equation is for women, right? Feel empowered. And I think this will become a lot more natural when we just become 50-50, when there are about 50% men and 50% women. Right now, there are so few women that we feel like, oh my God, what if I make a mistake? I mean, you know, there's a few of us, and what if I bring down production? And we just tend to assume the worst. We tend to, I think in that way, we're a lot more apprehensive of, things of, we magnify things that could go wrong. While that is true, things can go wrong, but things can also go right. And we might be really well prepared, but we we tend to, and that's why I said we are our own worst critics. And so we fail to advance ourselves. We absorb blame. We don't take a lot of credit. And I want to encourage all female engineers to actually take the risk. If you don't take the risk, no one is a better advocate for you than you. I mean, you might be blessed and might be lucky with a good manager, maybe all good managers, but still, you need to take some ownership, and it's your path. And a lot of tools will be provided, but take the risk. And if you make a mistake and you fall, there will be, I hope, better support. But for now, there is some support, and figure out, if you've gotten this far, you've definitely got it in you. So just power through, and you're going to move forward.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And the seeking out the sponsor for yourself, right? I mean, anyone would be flattered if you asked them, if anyone asked me to be a mentor for them, that's flattering them, right? And men love flattery. So if you find someone who you think could be a good sponsor for you or mentor, just ask them and ask their advice, right? People love giving advice, love sharing their experience and helping. So, you have to, like you said, advocate for yourself.
And it just doesn't have to be one mentor, right? Sometimes that's where women are like, well, I already have a mentor, and that's fine. You can have multiple mentors. You can look to different people for various strengths. It doesn't have to all roll up to that one perfect person who you may not have access to or you may not find. So use multiple people, leverage their strengths in different ways, and help them help you, and keep that feedback loop going. So if you're an active participant, I feel like you can get more out of it than just being very passive. I don't know, he's telling me this, but I don't see how it applies. Well, when you're talking to him or her, make sure you understand how it applies, and be really active and push back when it doesn't apply, so that you're not just sitting there absorbing things that don't really work for you.
Yeah. Yep. Agree.
I would love to hear from you about a situation or two in your career in which you overcame challenges presented by a non-diverse workplace. Again, Valli, I know you've had your entire life in engineering, right? Probably beside man. Joyce, being in robotics, being in Navy, I don't know, hundreds of men, right? And very few female. I'm sure you've had those situations, and would love to hear those stories. Valli, do you want to go first?
Sure. So I guess, I did, I was stuck in middle management. It's very difficult to move up after a point, and I'm talking a few years ago. So definitely being a director and a female Asian engineer did not look the profile, didn't fit the profile. And I found that to be a glass ceiling. And I would try multiple things, and it didn't matter. It's like whether you were trying to apply to a new position or trying to grow within your company. And so I did exactly what Joyce did. I reached out for a sponsor, right? And this person was way above. He was like the president of the company, but I'd worked with him on a number of high profile projects, and I delivered really well. And I reached out to him, and I was really surprised that he actually took the time. He didn't have all that time to mentor me, but he was definitely my sponsor, and helped me navigate the path, and told me what were the few tweaks. Like, those were precious tweaks of what, how to present a case, or how to anticipate questions that I was going to get, how to be prepared for that. They weren't huge time investments for him, but the suggestions that he gave me helped me incredibly. And also knowing that I had his support, his back, or he had my back, that gave me that strength. So obviously, having worked through that, it's much easier for me to talk now, but I can understand the apprehension of people who are on the other side of the equation. And I totally get it. I was there every bit of that way. And so I understand the apprehension, but I just think the risk is definitely worth taking. And I took this risk multiple times. A lot of times I fell flat it did not work. I ended up quitting, moving to a different company. But, you know, if that's what you want to do, if you want to stay in engineering and if you want to do well in your career, then keep trying. I definitely think there is value in that.
Yep, I'd say women can definitely try, right? Persevere. My example is actually riding a Navy ship, because one of the ships that I was supposed to ride, it was for a long transit, and the crew had not passed their operational test, so we had to go back to what's called developmental test. And so I was a sonar expert, and we were training the crew, the sonar techs and the crew, to be able to identify targets coming into their sonars, their beams. And so this long transit from San Diego to Hawaii was when we were going to do the training. And so I was the lead of the team. It was my system. I was the chief engineer. But the captain has the final say on who rides his ship, especially if they're civilians. The captain did not want a female on this ship. And so he told my sponsor, who was my commander at the time, basically said, we do not want females. And this is where he was an advocate for me, and basically said, you know, it's okay. We understand you have the final say, but if you don't want Joyce, we can get the B string. And if you think that your men can be trained with, you know, the second string, we're happy to bring them on. But if you really want someone who knows what she's talking about, you want Joyce to be on your ship. And so, so basically the captain said, I want to meet with her. So I had to get on the ship in San Diego, go to the captain's quarters, and the Navy's very formal. Everything is sir. You have to request to speak, you know, even when you're eating at the, and if there's any Navy people out there now, they know when you sit in the war room for lunch, you have to, you know, permission to be excused. You can't eat until he's served, all this. It's like he's king of the ship, but you have to respect that because he has ultimate responsibility. So I did go in and meet with him. And it worked out, and he said, okay, you can board my ship, but we do not want you taking any officer quarters. And this is where I stayed in sick bay, which all worked out until the last night, and someone got sick and had to stay in that room. So I had no place to sleep. But again, I go back to be a team player. So I went back into another area of the ship where I didn't realize this, but it was an extra like bunk area. So I went to bed, and 2 o'clock in the morning, the lights come on and a bunch of guys come into the room. It was their room where they played cards at night. So, you know, they were all super embarrassed and said, oh, we're so sorry, ma'am. You know, we didn't know you were in here. I'm like, what are you guys playing? You know, when they were playing, I don't know, rummy or something. I'm like, okay, teach me how to play. Who wants me on their team? So again, you just have to be a team player and kind of embrace the challenges and make good with them, right? You know, so I've always just tried to turn it back around and turn it into something good. So the captain was very happy at the end of the cruise, and his sonar techs did pass their test, and I got a beautiful framed picture of the ship with all of the sonar tech signatures around the outside. It was really nice. So that's one of my stories that I am proud of for overcoming that challenge. But again, you know, I had the advocate, I had the sponsor, but then I also had to prove myself. So, you know, another part of that equation is be the best at what you do. Mm-hmm. So they have to select you, right?
Yeah. You are not just going to be selected because, again, you're a woman, right? We don't want to be selected just because somebody wants to bring more diversity, right? We want to be equal.
Yeah. Exactly. And often cases, that's exactly what you don't want to happen, because that becomes a poster child of, see, this is why I tell you not to hire these people or not to give them, you know, additional responsibilities or whatever the case may be. So it's really important as women that we understand exactly what the challenges are and do a diff of where we are and what is expected, and really, you know, get there before we even apply. I don't know. That's sort of my feeling of really be prepared, because I don't want to be selected just because I tick a box or I'm part of statistics of, oh, you know, tech companies now have more women in leadership or just more women. I want to be an engineer. I want to be contributing. I want to carry my own weight. I don't want other people to take my responsibilities. So that, I think, is really the key here.
Yeah,
agree.
Got so much good advice from you to our women here already, but how, again, to maybe women here who are not in engineering roles, who are thinking about making a switch, maybe the mothers who are contemplating, like who had not an easy career, right, in engineering, and they're thinking, do I want to put my daughter through it? How can we else encourage, to still pursue careers in engineering? Because I think we all want to see more colleagues, women, besides us. Joyce?
So I've had 4 daughters, and the last one is finally going into engineering and computer science. She's just graduating actually this week from high school, so she goes next fall. I'm actually scared for her. I would never tell her that. So if any of you ever meet my daughter Julia, never say that. But it's not easy, and I was lucky that I had my father that I can't tell you how many times I wanted to quit. After my freshman year, after my sophomore year, Dad, I just can't hack it anymore. I can't do it. And he basically said, it's the only thing I'm paying for you to do. You can do anything you want after you're an engineer, but that's all I'm paying for. So I didn't have a choice, which now looking back, I am super thankful that he forced me to do it. I didn't force my girls. This last one, actually, she got exposed the right way, had her friend with her along the way. But I'm scared for her because I know how hard it is. And so my advice to her is get to know your professors, get mentors early, find study groups, don't fall behind. Like, you know how it is, Valli. If you fall behind a week or two or a lecture or two, you are lost for the rest of the semester. And so you really have to stay on it. And so I'm scared. So,
it'll be all right.
She's going to fly through with spectacular colors, Joyce.
So what do we do to encourage girls when we know how hard it is, Valli?
Yeah.
I think, how hard, to me personally, history was my hardest subject. Like, if I could pass history, I would pass the grade. And my parents never understood that. They were like, we've never seen someone like this. Why can't you just get history? Like, I think we're all wired in certain ways. And to me, math and science was like, oh, that's so logical. Like you start here and steps and you just end. I'm not brilliant at all. I am very methodical, and history has all of these dates and things that everyone, but you're good at things naturally and other things you have to work at. And I think it's really important for us to get that straight. If this is an area you want to pursue, just like basketball, we're not all born really well coordinated. That takes a lot of practice, a lot of skill. But why do people, obviously you want to excel at it, and so you put in that time. Just remember, to everyone who wants to do this, you have to put in time, regardless of whatever you want to do, whether you want to be a chef or you want to be an engineer, you want to be whatever. I think that time aspect, the glossier part of it is the job, the career, and the benefits that come with it. But prior to all that is the dirty, the lousy, the hard to stay on task bit of it, which is a lot of years. And you've just got to bite the bullet. And if this is what you want to do, get on with it. Okay, it's really difficult, but just do it. And
right. I think one of the biggest things for young girls is again, the encouragement and the exposure, and continue to just bring them to museums, bring them to places like MassRobotics, where we have robots everywhere. And we have lots of STEM programs. We do a robot block party. So I think the more you expose them and get them excited about something, so that they, like what you were saying, Valli, so they like it. If they like it, they're going to push through it.
Totally true. Thank you so much, Joyce and Valli and Ina. You were a wonderful panel. And I know we missed one of you today, but great job, everyone, with everything you shared. Your stories were really wonderful. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of the conference.
Thank you.